Hello and welcome to part 5 of the IS300 manual swap. Today it's been raining for 3 days, so that's not helpful. It's too late now to start actually installing the gearbox, so we're going to do a few things in preparation so that we're ready to do it tomorrow. So here's the manual gearbox and here's the auto gearbox. Then we've got the drive shafts. So the drive shaft from the IS300 is this one, the PT70, as it says right here. Then we've got the one from the IS200, which is the PT68. So you'll notice here that the front section of the IS200 one is actually a little bit longer than the IS300 one by about 7 centimeters. And that's because the J160 manual is about 7 centimeters shorter than the A650E automatic. So we're just making up the difference really. We're going to swap the IS300 front section out for the IS200 front section. It's really simple. It's literally just 4 bolts around the center section here. Now these are 14mm bolts and they come off pretty easy. Should just disconnect now. It's like welded on. I'm going to get a pry bar in here. Now we're simply going to swap these over. You see on both faces here, they've got this pattern where this has been sitting. So we know exactly how it's going to go on because of the shape, which means it's going to line up just like this. So now we know the orientation. I'm going to clean both faces up. Clean it off with a bit of brake cleaner. There is a little ring here that fits inside this section so that it sits flush. You just line the holes up and put the bolts back in. Cool, gonna have a quick look online, see if I can find the torque specs. I'm not 100% here, but I think it's 56 Newton meters. So I'm gonna go with that. Okay. I'm gonna do the opposite side. And then the opposite side again. Right, the next step is to remove this old rear main seal, and then we're going to clean this cover up a little bit, get all the old RTV off there and make sure the surface is nice and clean. Then we're going to install the new seal. So I'm going to use a screwdriver here, a very thin one, very carefully just to remove the old RTV in this little groove. So I'll be really gentle because I don't want to score the inside. Ideally you want to use something plastic, but I don't have anything. Actually, maybe I can use a toothpick. Right, let's see if a toothpick works. Yeah, it does, not so bad. It's actually better than the screwdriver. Right, now I'm going to try and push this old seal out. Oh, yep, that's not easy. They're going to have to hammer it out. Let's try this. Get 2 pieces of wood, and we'll balance it between them so that only the metal part of the case is resting on either side. Screwdriver, hammer, and a little bit more stubborn than I thought it would be. Oh! The screwdriver's gone straight through. I don't have a punch, which is not ideal. Oh, I thought this would come out easier. but it's not. Here we go. I'm just going to use some Scotch-Brite and clean the surface up. And do the inside just a little bit. Really badly stinks, I don't know why. I'm going to take it outside and spray it with some brake cleaner. I'm going to clean around the front surface a bit as well. And I forgot to clean the underside. This is important because we're going to have to put some RTV here so that nothing leaks out the base of the bottom of the rear of the engine. Yeah, cool, that's super shiny. I'm going to go clean it with brake cleaner again. It's not going to get any cleaner than that. So, time to install the new seal. So the outside of the seal should be dry, no grease, but we are going to grease the inner diameter when we come to install it in the car. I've pushed it in just a little bit on all sides, and now I'm going to get a piece of wood and a mallet, and I'm just going to very gently tap it in both sides. And then turn it the other way. And just repeat that process. So you want the seal to be flush with the metal section on the outside. And when you're hammering it, you'll get to a certain point where the hammering will feel different. It'll feel more solid. That means it's probably flush. Getting to that point now for me. Now that is nice and flush all the way around. That's ready to install into the car. Just have a quick check on the back to make sure it's not folded over anywhere. It looks good. There was another thing I was going to do tonight, which was to wire the reverse switch, but I don't have any crimping connections, so we'll come back to it tomorrow. Yo, good morning. Okay, we've got some lovely weather for once. So I was going to wire the reverse switch. That was the first thing I was going to do, because I went to the parts store this morning and got everything I needed. But since the weather's nice, I think we're going to move on to other stuff. So I'm going to install the remain seal cover, and then the flywheel and the clutch, pressure plate, do all that stuff, because I can wire the switch. I can wire the switch anytime I want, even if it's raining or dark. Very first thing I'm going to do is get under the car and clean the surfaces where that cover's going to attach with some Scotch-Brite. Right, we're going to clean all around here, and then on the top of here as well, and probably the face of this crankshaft adapter thingy, because that's where the flywheel attaches, so we want to clean all of that surface as well. I've got this little plastic scraper as well that I'm going to use first, just to get the most of it off. It's not the most comfortable in here. Let's get this thick layer off first. It's important to get this bottom bit here, get all the old RTV off, because we need to create a seal on the bottom. So this hole here needs to be really clean as well, because on the inner diameter there, that's where the spigot bearing is going to sit. So we need to make sure that's super clean. The bolts have some old RTV on them. I'm going to clean them up and then we can install. I'm just wiping this down with some brake cleaner before I put any of the sealant on. You can see this bottom surface here. Well, you can't see that well, but this bottom surface is really cleaned up. So we need a good seal. So I'm going to put some RTV around the edge of here, and then I'm going to put some RTV on the bottom section here. This is how I've done it. I put a bead of RTV on the bottom. I'll put it all around the sides in that little groove and around the bolt holes. And then I put some lithium grease in the centre of the seal there. I've also put some RTV on the bottom layer as well, just to make sure. Oh, here we go. And there's two little dowels to help guide you on either side. So one dowel here and one dowel here. So make sure you line those up. And then we can gently tap it on. Make sure it's going on evenly on all sides. And once we're happy that is on, we can put the bolts in. Now I've got conflicting reports here on how these should be torqued down. One manual says 6 Newton meters and another one says 9, so I'm going to go with the 9 just to make sure. It's not going to snap the head, so it'll be fine. This should all be done now, but I'm going to recheck them just to make sure. Yep. Yeah. Yep. 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 And yep. Cool. That is the rear main installed. Now I'm going to hammer in the spigot bearing. Just goes in this little hole here. So I'm not going to smash it in, just going to gently tap it. Just tap it in. I'm going to use a 24mm socket just to tap it in because it fits perfectly around the edge. And that's nice and flush to the outside, but you will notice that there is a lip on the inside, on the outer side, which means that you can only hit it in so far anyway. And here's what it looks like when it's in. Before I put the flywheel in, I'm going to clean it up. Some brake cleaner, because it is actually filthy. Time to install the flywheel. Now, I've got some conflicting reports on torque specs here. If I look at every manual, it says 49 Newton meters. Then I look online and everyone says 49 Newton meters plus a 90-degree turn. And on the instructions here, it actually says 70 pounds-foot. So, yeah. I don't really know what to do, but I'm going to go by the service manual, and that's 49, and then I'll guess I'll go in between and do the extra 90-degree turn, and that should be enough. I'm going to use some red Loctite. It says 242 on this, it says 242 on here, but 271 would be fine. And some ARP fastener assembly lubricant. This is to go under the head of the bolt so that the torque spec stays true. And I'm using some ARP bolts that I got with the kit. Of course, we're going to install it so that the side with the teeth is facing the engine. These ARP bolts use a 13mm star socket. So obviously the red Loctite that I'm going to use is going to go on the threads, but this ARP lube goes on the underneath of the head of the bolt, so this surface here, and this helps the bolt turn correctly on this surface so that the torque spec is true. Before I put the flywheel on, I'm just gonna get all that grease off from when we were putting the rear main seal on. And now it's time to put the flywheel on, which isn't going to be easy because the camera's kind of in the way. I think I'm going to put it in upside down. I hope it doesn't fall on my head because it's pretty heavy. So it just slots over the cylindrical part that's already there. Just like this. It should stay there then, but you've got to make sure that you line the bolts up with the hole. But you've got to make sure that you line the holes up with the bolt holes so they're not quite in line now. I'm going to have to move it a little bit. Now the bolt holes are in line. I'm going to show the process for the bolts real quick. So, the assembly lube just around the bottom of the head of the bolt, like that. And then the Loctite just goes on the threads, just like this. Then we can put all 8 bolts in around here. I think I might have to push the flywheel all the way on. If that's even possible with my hands. That's as far as I can get it on. But at least the bolt's going in easier now. Okay, that's 1 bolt in. I'm going to do the rest. Right, it's easier for me to turn the camera off and put the rest of them in, but when we come to torque them, I'll come back. I'm just finishing putting these bolts in, and then we're going to torque them. I'm going to mark them with a white marker with a vertical line, and then I know then after they've been torqued to 49 newton meters, I can then turn it 90 degrees, and I know that I've turned every one of them 90 degrees. A little trick I got from ChrisFix. In fact, I'll link his video down below of how to install a clutch, because it's really useful. Okay, right, they're all finger tight. Now, we'll torque them. I think the flywheel needs to be pushed all the way on first, and putting these, tightening these bolts will do that for me. Just make sure that I do them evenly. Just going in a star pattern and slowly tightening them all up. Oh, okay, let's turn the engine anti-clockwise. So there is a trick for this. Then you need a spanner and a bolt. So you're going to put a bolt in here and a bolt in here, and then you can put the spanner on one, and then it like attaches on the other one with the hook side, the ring side here, and then I'll just show you. So we put a bolt in that fits the flywheel, and then we put one of the Bellhousing bolts in, and then we connect them up with this spanner so that when we turn this way, which is turning the engine anti-clockwise, it doesn't it doesn't spin. So then we're able to torque the bolts. So again, we'll do it in a star pattern. Do that one and that one. Then this one and this one. And this one and this one. Okay, all good. Now I'm going to get a paint pen, a white one. Okay, I'm going to draw a line on each bolt, a vertical line like this. And now I'm going to give it an extra 90-degree turn, and I'll know that it's 90 degrees based on the orientation of the lines. I might actually have to get a breaker bar for this because this hasn't got enough leverage. Oh. Okay, got a breaker bar now. Should be easier. This is difficult. Okay. Oh, that's about 80 degrees. And that will do. I'll take this spanner off and get this bolt out. This bolt out. So as you can see, it's about 80 degrees there. I felt like I was going a little bit too tight, but I guess for flywheel bolts you can never really go too tight. I don't know. This is the internet's advice anyway, so I'm going with that. So before we put the clutch in, we want to clean the surface of the pressure plate. It's going to make contact with the clutch. Just clean it up with some brake cleaner. Dry it off. And we're ready to put the clutch in. Just before we put the clutch in, I'm going to clean the flywheel again. Some brake cleaner. Just to get all that RTV and stuff off that I've spread from other places. And dry it off. Right, just before we put the clutch in, this is another trick from ChrisFix. We mark one of the splines like this, and it helps us get the gearbox in later when it comes to aligning the drive shaft or the spline of the main shaft of the gearbox. There is two sides to the clutch plate. There's a side that sticks out and a flat side, and we want the flat side facing the flywheel like this. Literally doesn't matter what orientation it's in, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to put the clutch tool in, and that tip is going to go into the spigot bearing. I'm actually going to put it so that the tool is in line with this little notch in the clutch. Might help me line it up a little bit better. Next I'm going to put the pressure plate on, and there's 3 dowel pins here, one there, one there, one there, these little studs, and they correlate to, I think, yeah, this one. There's two together here, and it goes in the smaller one, and you'll have 2 together in 3 points around the pressure plate. So let's put this on here. Just line it up with the studs. Like that. And then we'll put one of the bolts in. Got some ARP flywheel pressure plate bolts here. I think there's 6 of them. Yeah, there's 6. So we'll put one of these in to stop it from moving. It's going to knock it onto those studs a little bit. The ARP bolts for the pressure plate are 10mm ones. I'm going to put some blue Loctite on these ones. That top one's just holding it in place at the moment. I will take it out later when I've got all the other ones in, and I'll put some Loctite on that one as well. There's 6 of these. Oh, there. Just going to square this up a bit more because the bolts aren't going in. I'm going to make sure the studs are even. I'm going to take that one out at the top. Put some Loctite on it. These are torqued down to 19 Newton meters, and they can't be any more than that because it will affect the clutch, or any less than that. It will affect the way the clutch works. So again, just doing this in a star pattern. This is going to take a while. tighten these up is pushing the pressure plate onto those pins further so that you don't have to push it on all the way. Time to torque these up to 19 Newton meters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Then we can remove the clutch alignment tool. That is the flywheel and the clutch and the pressure plate installed. As you can see, that's lined up nicely for when we put the gearbox in. Fun times! Woo! So we had some good weather today, which is good. It's amazing how long this takes to film, getting the right angles and everything. And I've had 2 dislocated shoulders in the past, and it makes it really hard being under the car. Having my shoulders in weird positions and stuff. So that's going to do it for today. It took me a long time to get the clutch and the flywheel in and clean up the plate for the rear main seal and all that stuff. So gearbox goes in tomorrow. We've still got to cut the tunnel. We've still got to wire the reverse switch and take some of those hydraulic pipes out and the oil filler pipe, but it's not major stuff. So gearbox should be going in tomorrow. I'll see you then. Hello, it's the next day. Let's jump straight into it. First thing I'm going to do is remove this oil filler pipe. There's a bracket in the engine bay in the bottom here. Don't know if you'll be able to see it. Right there, just on the bottom of the intake manifold, there's a bolt. That's the bracket for the pipe that we're going to take out now. So I'm going to try and get a swivelly adapter on there and see if we can get it off. It's a 12mm bolt, I think. Let's try and get it out. Yep, that's not coming out because the angle isn't enough. It's at a really weird angle, so this isn't enough. I don't know how I'm going to get it out. I don't think I can get my arm in there with a spanner. I meant to ratchet, not a spanner. Ow! That's what I cut my arm on. Ooh, I might have got it. Yes, I've got it. I'm just gonna hold this in case it impales me, which it won't because it's super light. There we go. Right, the bracket's off, but there is a little clip as well. The little clip that holds it to the wiring harness there. We're just going to cut that and then it should come out. Okay, that's it. Oh, finally. That took way too long. Alright. There we go. That's what we want out. Now we're going to remove these hydraulic pipes here. So these trail up to a bracket on the side. And if we come out and into the wheel arch, we can actually undo it from here. You see that bolt? That's the one we want to take out. Then, after that, it trails up to this heat exchanger here. And we're going to disconnect it from here and the one behind there, which is going to be a pain to get to. Maybe we can get to that from the bottom. Not sure. Let's undo the bracket first. So it looks like a 10mm bolt. That's loose. So I'll go in there now by hand and try and take the rest out. There we go. Oh, the bracket fell off. Okay. This is the bracket. So those pipes are loose now, so we can go up to the engine bay. And we'll undo this clip here and try and pull the pipe off. It's not going to be too easy to film. That's annoying. Why is everything in such an annoying place? Okay, let's try and pull that off. I have to do it with some pliers. It's pretty hard with my hand. It's coming off. There we go. Yeah. Okay, the next one is going to be even worse. I believe I can just disconnect this and then do nothing with it. I don't know exactly how it works, but it must be some sort of valve and hydraulic pressure that controls it so that I can go to the automatic gearbox, but we don't need it in this case. So I'm guessing the function of it is just rendered pointless, and it doesn't actually activate it. I'll manage to get the clip off from under the car. I think this one's easier to pull off from underneath because it points downwards. I'm just trying not to pull and smack myself in the face, which is definitely going to happen, so I'm not going to film it. Might actually be easier to get this from the top. Just from the top you can grip it with the pliers and then twist, and as you twist it pulls it off. You can kind of see it there coming off. I really need 2 hands for this. I got it. Just pulled it off with my hand in the end. Might be easier to pull them out this way. 1 and 2. Oh, nice. Now we're going to start on the wiring. So we've got to wire this. We've got to wire this reverse switch here. So I'm going to chop it here because it's a little bit frayed. Well, it's a lot frayed. Take this sleeve off, and then I'm going to put one of these little motorsport connections on there, and then the other side is going to go on the car. When we go to the car, we're going to see it's a 2-pin connector we're going to be using. So these 2 red wires here, those 2 wires on the gearbox for the reverse switch are going to connect to these 2 red wires here, pin 2 and 3. That means we're going to cut these 2 red wires and we're going to extend them a few feet so that it reaches the switch on the gearbox. And the rest of them are pretty much useless. So I'm going to get some cutters. Cut that wire. I'm going to cut that wire. Now the 2 red ones are going to cut. I'm going to strip them back. I'm going to add a crimp connector and extend it to some other longer wires. I'm going to cut this tube a little bit just so I can get a little bit further in to get those cables longer. Now these 2 red cables are out the way, we can strip them. So one of them is red and blue and one of them is red and black. I think the red and blue one is the 12 volt and the red and black is the reverse. I've cut these 2 now and I'm going to twist them up, ready for crimping connections. These are the connectors that I'm using here. Simple ones off eBay. 2-pin. Oh yeah, that's the wrong way. You just clip together like this. So this side's going to go on the car and this side's going to go on the gearbox. I'm going to strip the wires on these 2. Oh no. No. Here we go. This would be a lot easier without gloves. Now I'm just going to get 2 crimp connectors. Put that one on. Make sure the connection's good. Then under the car we're going to connect those 2 wires there. Now I've got 2 black wires that I'm going to connect to here to extend the cables. There's one. There's 2. Just so you know, there's no polarity here, so it doesn't matter which way round you wire things. It's 2 pins, no polarity. So I've put 2 crimp connectors on this side. Now I'm going to attach the wires. So remember, it doesn't matter which way around you put this. You can put either wire in either slot and it won't matter because there's no polarity. Oh, this is going to be a bit tricky because the wire is just going to fall out and it's hard to do with one hand. Oh, holy moly, that's hard. That one's good. Now we'll crimp the final one. There you go. That one's good. Cool. So the other end is this switch, and that's going to go to the gearbox. So let's go to the gearbox side and sort that one out. I'm going to do exactly the same thing here, except I'm not going to extend it. I'm just going to chop it here and add a connector. Right, I've done that, and now I'm going to wrap it in this fabric electrical tape stuff. Connector's all done, and I've wrapped it in that fabric-y electrical-y tape thingy. And I've done the same with this one. It took me forever, but it looks nice. Now that the reverse switch is wired, we're going to have to cut the tunnel. And the reason we have to do this is because the gearbox won't fit if you don't. So we need to cut like this. And let me show you why. This bracket here, so that front edge of the tunnel sits around here, and it's just not going to lift up enough because it's too high. So we need to cut it so that there's room for this slope. I'm going to get the gearbox in place now and make sure that that we're cutting it right. Might bolt it up a little bit and see where we're at. Speaking of bolts, I have lined up all the bolts that I've got with the MCL AutoWorks kit. It's pretty self-explanatory, really. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16mm ones, which, they're Allen bolts, so it's not going to be 16. What's this going to be? 8. These are 10s. What would be the 17mm bolts? What would be the 17mm bolts are now 10mm Allen bolts. And then there's some 8mm ones at the bottom, and these are 8mm as well. These are longer because of the starter motor, is what connects up to that. To make it easier to get the gearbox in, I've disconnected the exhaust just after the catalytic converter, and I've also took these brackets off, the bolts out of these brackets. This allows the engine to tilt back ever so slightly, just so it's easier to connect the gearbox. And I've undone these because I don't want it to drag the radiator back as well. This is horrible. Let me show you where I'm up to. So I had to get someone else to hold the jack while I pushed it on. This is where I'm up to now. Angling it so it actually goes in is just awful. This is going to take me a while, so there's no point in me filming it, but I know I have to tilt it back a bit and then tilt it a little bit to the side to get it in. And I'm just going to keep on trying. This is where I'm up to. I've got an axle stand on the back of it, and I've got the jack on the front of it. I know it doesn't look very stable, but it probably isn't. This is the best way that I've found to do it so far. Doing this alone is really hard without a lift. You can see there that I'm just trying to angle it so that it goes in correctly the way I want it to. I can see the spline, but I forgot to mark it and then turn it to the bottom, so I don't know if it's going to go in the way I want it to. Let's pray. So, 4 little bolts, and this comes out, the gear stick, because there's no way I could have got it in with that in the way. I've been trying, it's almost in. The spline's just making contact, and yeah, it's been horrible. But we're getting there, very close. Right, we're very, very close, but it's getting stuck on the tunnel now. This is what I meant. So when the gearbox comes up, this bracket gets stuck on this part here, so we're going to have to cut here, here, and along here. Let's get started. I'm going to mark it out now. This pink pen. So we're going to go up here, here, and then we'll go probably like that. That's our cutting marks. There's one cut. It's not perfect, unfortunately. There's a fly. There's flying ants everywhere. It's really annoying. Just going to cover these wires up just in case we damage them. Cool, all done. This is pretty rough, so I'm going to file it down. I'm sorry, car. It looks bad. But no one's going to see it, so never mind. So I've missed a crucial step. I didn't grease the spline, so that's unfortunate. But remember to grease the spline before you align it and put it into the clutch. So I've got the two bottom bolts in, this one and the one on the other side of the jack, just to hold it there while I move the jack to the back so that I can jack it up properly, because this one's at its length now, this little scissor jack. Right, I've had to cut the back of the tunnel now as well, because it just wasn't going in. This would be different if I had a lift. I wouldn't have to do this, but unfortunately I don't. There was a gap at the top that was way bigger than the bottom, and now it's definitely evened out a bit. So yeah, we're all good. Let's try and push it in. Problem is, I don't know if the spline is aligned or not. I'm pretty sure it is, because it's quite far in. Let me see at the top. Oh, I can't even reach to the top. That's got to be almost in. There's like a tiny gap now. Like maybe now less than a 5mm gap. Oh, this probably doesn't help that I didn't grease the spline. So tiring. Right, I've run out of time and I've got to go to church, so I'll pick this up tomorrow and I'll explain what I've done and where I'm up to. I'm so close. Okay, see you tomorrow. Hello, it's the next morning. I'm going to explain a little bit about what's going on. So I've rejigged the jack a million times. I didn't film most of getting the gearbox in because I was on it for 4 or 5 hours. I started out with 2 jacks, a scissor jack and a trolley jack, and I also had at one point another axle stand under there as well. Wasn't really working out too well. I called a few people who've done this quite a few times, and they gave me some good advice. 1 jack, trolley jack. So this is where I'm up to now. The angle that I had to get it in at was absolutely ridiculous. So let me explain a bit. What I did first was I obviously tilted it way back and allowed the engine to, sag back a bit. So disconnecting the exhaust at the beginning was a really good thing to do because it allowed me to align the gearbox a little bit more when the engine was tilting back a bit. So as well as tilting it back, I had to rotate it like 35-40 degrees clockwise just to be able to get it past the exhaust there. I didn't want to undo the exhaust at the bottom of the manifold because, well, those bolts are gonna snap or be really difficult to get out. So I managed to get it in eventually, and then obviously I took the gear stick out because there was just absolutely no way I was going to get it in with that in. It took me ages to align it up. It's still not in. There is a good 10mm gap. The spline is in the clutch but not in the spigot bearing. So it doesn't help that I forgot to grease it, so it makes it way harder to get in. But you can see the gap there. It's so close. It's a little bit, the gap at the top is more than the bottom, but a little bit more wiggle room. I'll be able to get the top bolts in and then we should be fine. Having 1 jack in this position was way better than having all of that other stuff on it, because each jack and axle stand was just fighting each other. So having 1 in this position is the best way I've found to do it, and that's some advice I got from somebody else. this selector here, this is where the selector is. If you pull it all the way out, it's in third. If you push it all the way in, it's in fourth. And if you have it in the middle, it's in neutral, which allows you to spin the spline a bit here. By turning this, it allows you to line it up with the clutch. If you remember, I marked the clutch alignment tool so that I know that one of the teeth was pointing directly down when we installed the clutch. Actually, you know, one of the there's a gap at the very bottom where I can insert the spline of the gearbox, but I forgot to mark the gearbox and set it at the bottom, so that was pointless me talking about that, but it would have been a lot more helpful if I'd have done that. But the clutch is the spline is in the clutch now anyway, so it's not such a big deal. Right, we're going to get on with it now. I'll show you what I did to the inside. The tunnel has been cut quite a lot. Oh, well, you can see from here. Well, you can see it, but not very well. I'll go on the inside of the car and I'll show you. All right, this is how much I had to cut it just to get it in. This is because I haven't got a lift. I didn't want to cut the car this much, but, well, that's the way it goes. I really didn't have much choice not having a lift. As I said before, if I didn't take this gear stick out, there is absolutely no way I was getting it in. It kept banging on the bottom of here, and it was getting stuck, and it just would have been impossible. I'm not joking when I say that this was, well, it's been an absolutely massive task. I would not recommend you doing this in the driveway if you're going to do it yourself. I almost regret doing it myself because it's been miserable. I mean, absolutely miserable. My body hurts. It's just horrible doing everything that I've done in the positions that I have to do it in. But it's done now, and I'm glad that I've took this on myself because it's, you know, the best way to learn. I've never done a clutch, never done, you know, anything with the gearbox before. That engine maintenance video I did was the biggest video I've ever done, but this, massive step up. Anyway, let's get on with it. Okay, I'm serious when I say this. At one point, I was pushing the back with my hand, and I had my foot on the edge of the bell housing like this, and that was the only way that I could get the spline into the clutch. A little tip, but not a safe tip, so use at own peril. I'm pretty much just trying anything now to get this in. This might not be the best idea, but I'm going to use my feet again. I can see that it's slightly off center at the back there. Push it over. Got 2 bolts in at the bottom and one kind of in on the left side. It's not working. I might have to drop the jack just a little bit more. I can't get out. I'm gonna get this wheel out the way. Let's see how much gap we've got. Oh, this is good. This is good. This is good. Okay, we've got about a 6mm gap on the bottom and a 9mm gap on the top. You probably can't see that. It looks bigger than 6mm, but it's not. And then the top there, yeah, it does look a lot bigger on camera, but it's not that big. Anyway, I'm going to try and put some bolts into the bell housing and see if it helps me align it. Oh, so I've managed to get 4 bolts in. There's 2 on the bottom, there's 1 on that right side, and there's 2 here as well. 1 that goes into the bell housing, and then 1 at the top there that goes into the starter. As you can see, I've mounted the bottom of the starter. It fits pretty flush, so it's not like such a big issue. It lines up really well, and as you can see, I haven't done the top one yet, so that's a bit loose. But That one's in. It's looking a lot more uniform now around. So I think we can actually start putting the bolts in a bit. This is what I did. Let me show you what I did. From the top. Oh, from inside the car actually. Oh, so you might not believe this, but this was actually really helpful. I put my hands in here to the bottom. Put my feet either side. Yeah, it's not comfortable. And then, actually no, I put one foot there and then a knee on the seat. Put my hands in, grab this, being very careful because I haven't filed this down yet. And I basically just wiggled it about. Oh, and it actually helped get it on a lot further. I might have just undone that work now, but let's go and have a look to see if it actually made any difference. I'll do it a little bit more. So I think this is helping. This handbrake isn't helping, it's way in the way. But I understand that this isn't usually the way you do this. But since I'm by myself, I'm doing everything I can. Okay, let's see if that made any difference. So it didn't make any difference, but before it did. I think it's at its limit, that technique now. But it did help me get it in a lot more uniform all the way around before. I'm thinking about just getting the top bolts in and then using the bolts as a sort of way to get the spline into the spigot. I know it's not the best way to do it, but I'm kind of running out of options here because I've been on this for quite a while. Let's I'll have a think about it. This is the tool we're using. Big extension. And I've got a reducer on there because I've only got a 3/4 inch 10mm Allen socket. Oh, I don't know if you can see now down the bottom there. I actually managed to get... Oh, you can't see. That's so annoying. Let me get closer. Alright, see the bolt at the top there? I actually managed to get that in by hand. Luckily I've only got nimble fingers, like quite slim hands and forearms, so it was easy for me to get in there. There's no way I'll be able to do it on the other side because it's the exhaust is in the way. But I've got that one in. I'm going to try and tighten it a little bit now. I've put a torch on the top of the gearbox, which I didn't do last time. It's actually a pretty good idea, and it just means I can see those top bolts a bit better. I'm just trying to tighten this top left one a little bit until it's flush with the plate, the Bellhousing plate, and then I'll put the top right one in. I'm trying to eyeball it at the same time as like turning it. It's hard because I've got to be at two opposite ends. Ow, my head. This gearbox is smaller though, so it is a little bit easier than getting the other one out. I think it's time to get that top right one in now. This is the hardest one because the exhaust is in the way. Probably should have removed this. I still might remove it actually. Yep, I will. Yeah, I should have took this heat shield out ages ago. It's just two 10mm bolts. Oh, that one needs to be a longer socket. Oh, there's three 10mm actually, three 10mm bolts. Ah, that's much better visibility now. This is very awkward. Yes, it is going in. It's tightened it a little bit now, which is good. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is just tighten the bolts little by little, top and bottom, just to see if we can not force, just persuade the spline to go into the spigot bearing. Those bolts are in enough now that I've took the jack away See if we can wiggle it into place. The bolts are definitely holding it. It's not going to fall. Right, that gap's getting less and less now. You can see the bolt at the top and probably, hopefully, see the other one. Oh no, it's pretty difficult to see. There we go, there's the other one at the top. I've got one on here, I've got the 2 bottom ones in, and 2 here as well. One of them's for the starter. Can't see the starter one. Oh, the starter one's there. So there's the 16mm and then the 14mm at the top there. Okay, so I've tightened this one here a little bit. You can't see. I've tightened this one here a little bit, which has pulled it on quite a bit now. So I'm just tightening the top ones a bit more because there's probably a millimetre gap at the top, more than the bottom, if that. I can feel that gap. It must be 2mm. And then the bottom, also probably 2mm. Tighten that a bit, and then we'll try and do the other side. Oh no, goodbye. We're getting really close here. Really close. Let's get this one in. We're getting there. Right, we're going to tighten that top right one again. And then we'll put the final one in on the right side. There's one in that I haven't got in there. Actually, let's do that now. Here it is. Oh, it's going to be a bit of a poop to get in. Just remember as well, that we have got some dowels here as well. So there is one right there. You see between those 2 holes, one's got the bolt in, then there's another one on the far left side, just an empty hole where the starter one will go in, and then in the middle there, the silver thing poking through, that's a dowel, or a stud, or whatever you want to call it. There's, I think, 2 of them. One on that side there, and then there's another one there. See that one just above the bolt there? I think there's only 2. Can't see any other ones around, and there's none at the top. So yeah, just remember you've got those there to line up, obviously. So I'm going to see if I can just continue to tighten these bolts, and I'll come back when it's completely flush now, like all the way around, and then I'll show you when all the bolts are tight. Actually, I'll come back when I need to torque them. It's in! Oh, the lighting's crap. Look at this. All the bolts are in. Even down there. You can't see, it's not focusing. Anyway, they're in. All of them. They're not torqued down yet. We'll do that in a minute. But I'm going to have a rest. So the bad news is I forgot to put a thread lock on all of the bolts. So I'm going to take each bolt out one at a time and then put it back in with thread locker on. I'm just going to use the Loctite Blue because, well, that's what ChrisFix says to do. So that's what I'm going to do. Once I've done that, then I'll come back when we're going to torque the bolts. The 14mm bolts, or the 8mm Allen bolts in this case, are going to be torqued to 39 Newton meters. And the 17mm bolts, or in this case, the 10mm Allen bolts, are going to be torqued to 72 Newton meters. Although I don't think this one is going to fit because it's pretty long and there's not enough room in there. I might just have to set this one to 60, which is its maximum, and then do a little 10 afterwards. Okay, let's start with these bottom ones. It's 39. This one is also 39. Let's see if we can try and get to this one with the big torque wrench. Might not be possible. We might be able to do it. Oops. Oh, it's not going to be possible. It's too big. No, there's not enough room. So I know this isn't going to be too accurate, but I'm going to use the swivel adapter because I don't really have any other choice. Right, there's way too much play in that. I can't torque it like that. Maybe a longer extension. Let's try a longer extension. Alright, this is a super long one. Okay, that fits in, so let's see if we've got enough room here to torque it. Yes, we do. It's not going to be super accurate with all these extensions though, but, well, I can't really do a lot about that. So, that definitely needs a swivel on it. There's no way otherwise. It's impossible. The one at the top there, on the right there, it's a little bit out the way. Ah, there we go. Whoa. Like I said, it's not going to be that accurate because of the swivel adapter, but I haven't got any choice. That's the only way it'll go in. Alright, let's try and get these top ones in. Oh, that one's done. Let's do the top left. There you go. Oh dear me. I'm going to have to use a shorter extension for this. A swivel adapter for this one as well. All I've got left to do now is the starter bolts, 39 newton meters, and then we're done. Where's the swivelly? Ah, yes, we're done. Truly awful experience getting that gearbox in. The worst experience I've had in mechanical engineering since. Anyway, now that we've torqued the bolts down, we're gonna put the drive shaft in. First things first, we clean up the shaft. Some brake cleaner. Make sure the surface is good. Get rid of any crap in the hole as well. And we'll tip it outside. I actually forgot about the mount. Let's install the mount before we do the drive shaft. So on the automatics, as you can tell by, oh hold on, on the automatics there is the 125 pointing towards the front like this, 125, but on the other side we've got something saying L6NA. I think for when you do the manual conversion, you've got to have it this way instead. Let's put it on that way and then see, and then we'll jack it up and see if the holes line up here. Alright, forget what I just said. So I need to have the 125W pointing towards the front of the car. The nuts here are going to go on the bottom of this. They're torqued down to 13 newton meters, and then the big bolts that go on the underneath of the big holes here that mount to the chassis are torqued down to 25 newton meters. I'm always reeling off torque specs, but this is just a diary of my own stuff. I just put them in because if you want to do the same thing, then you don't have to look them up, but you should always still look them up. Don't just depend on me. Oh, let's get this in. So 125 is here, that's pointing forwards towards the front of the engine, front of the car. And then we'll put our nuts on. Oh, yeah, they're not going on that great. Oh, I'm going to have to clean up these bolts first. Some WD-40. And a wire brush. Let's see how it goes on now. These are 12mm nuts. Torque them down. 13 newton meters. I'll tell you what we need to do now before we mount that. Yeah. We need to fit this polybushing right here because this will help stiffen it up a little bit. So this little bush goes into, well, in that little hole. So let's go to the other side. Pretty much just slots in here. well, I say slot, might not be as easy as just slot it in. Might have to hammer that in, I don't know. Oh, yeah. I'm just going to push it in with my thumbs and hope that it goes in. It's going, but it's not easy to get in. Holy moly. That's ridiculous. Do I put grease on it? Probably not. It's impossible. Definitely should have done this with the gearbox out of the car. That's as far as it'll go in. Whew. Hopefully it stays there. Just to show you what it looks like from this side, that's supposed to stiffen it up quite nicely, so we'll see. Now I'm going to jack this up into place and then put the bolts in. I haven't done it all the way because it's on rubber mounts, so it's not quite lining up, so I'll get all the bolts in and then we can get rid of the jack and torque them up. I'm going to use some blue Loctite on these. Just on the tip really, because that's where it matters in this case. I'm going to do diagonal and opposite. Put a tiny bit of grease on here, just to make sure it goes in easy. Okay, let's put this drive shaft in then. Just slot it in. Exhaust a bit in the way. Oh, there we go. I'm going to lift the middle up and then push it in. I don't know if it goes all the way in. That's a bit misshapen, this part here. I might hammer that back in place actually. Let's do that real quick. Well, that's the best we can hope for. Can we hammer that in? I'm just gently tapping it, by the way. I'm not going crazy. I'm pushing it in with my other hand. Ah, there we go. That's exactly what we wanted. And we want these holes to line up on the bracket here for the middle section, which they do. That one, and then there's another one on the other side. There we go. They both line up, so that's good. When you're attaching this to the top, to the chassis, there's some washers here that go on the top, like this, and then they go into the chassis. And then there's washers on the bolts as well. I'll put a little bit of blue thread lock on these bolts, which I didn't do for these bolts here, and I'm not sure if I should have because it's rotating. I'll have to go back and revisit that. I'm going to put the washer on the top. I'll put the bolt through the washer so I don't lose it. Then we push up. No, I lost the washer. Let's try that again. We can leave it there a sec while we do the other one. This one will be a bit awkward because it's behind the exhaust. In we go. Let's rest that there. So I'm going to thread these bolts through a little bit, but not all the way, because I want it to be a little bit loose just in case we have problems connecting the back of the drive shaft to the diff. Oh, okay, now we're going to attach it to the back. And you'll notice, remember the pattern I talked about when we did the midsection? We just want to line it up the same as the pattern, which for me is, let me see, like this. Oh, shit. So from what I've read online, there's definitely a little bit of controversy between blue Loctite and red Loctite. I think I'm going to use blue, just because I think it'll be okay, and proper torque specs, which I might not be able to do because the drive shaft spins unless I put the car in gear. I don't know. I'm going to use glue anyway. So let's put them in by hand and tighten them up a little bit. Come on. Driveshaft isn't spinning and I don't know why. Oh, the handbrake is on, that's why. Let's try it now. Okay, that's, nope. I figured it out. It was just the brake pads had seized a little bit to the disc. So let's continue with this. I'll put the handbrake on so I can torque this. If a torque wrench will even fit. Might have to use the swivel adapter again. I know it's not reliable, but better than nothing. Oh, I forgot to put the blue Loctite on. Now I'll have to take this one back out and Loctite it. And now I can't even remember if I put it on the first one, so I'll have to take that one out as well. No, I don't think I did. The final one. Okay, they're in. I'm going to put the handbrake on now so we can torque them. Alright, the manual says 74 Newton meters. I'll just be spinning. There's nothing on the other side. Let's get a 40mm spanner. I hope this fits on. Yes, it does. Nice. But which way? Not that way. This way. Okay, cool. Oh, I didn't even need to put the handbrake on. What am I doing? I've got something on the other side. Oh dear. There we go. Alright, I'm going to flip it all the way around. We'll do this one. Right, this is going to be like pretty much impossible to torque, I think. Might have to just use the impact gun. Oh, yeah, I can't do it. Alright, here we go. That one. No, not this again. So we'll go back to that one we did before. If we can get this on, which we can't, never mind. We'll do it this way. And then we do the two other opposites. And the last one, right here. There we go. That's what happens when you don't use the right tools. The pin's coming out. Never mind. Finally, we're going to tighten these two bolts either side, and they're torqued down to 49 Newton meters. That's one. Two. Nice. Right, I'm going to leave it there because this video is already super long. This was just the major mechanical install of the gearbox and the drive shaft. In the next video, you're going to see the installation of the clutch hose and the ECU and all the wiring that you need to do to make it work with the manual gearbox. Remember, if you're doing this yourself, to make sure that you grease the input shaft before you put it into the spigot bearing, and make sure that the spigot bearing glides over the input shaft smoothly before you install anything. Trust me, it really did cause me problems down the road, as you'll see in later videos. I did include a lot of what could be classed as B-roll footage in this video, or unwanted footage. I did go into a lot of detail, every bolt in, every bolt out. If that's too boring and you want it shorter, please let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe it was a little bit too extreme this time. The only reason is, if you're doing this yourself, I just want to make sure that you see everything. Yeah, that's it. In future, maybe I won't do it as detailed as I did in this one. Maybe it was a little bit too much. Recording this outro, it's actually 7 months later. I do realize how long it has taken me to get this video out. All I can say is that I had some really devastating life events that knocked me off track with videos. Rest assured that that is not the case now moving forward. I'm going to get the rest of the videos out as soon as I possibly can within the next few months. There's another 3 parts after this, maybe 4, I can't remember, but anyway, yeah, I will get them out as soon as I can. I've got some big plans for the future. This car is now sold. You'll see. I really hope this video was helpful. Please like, comment and subscribe if you want to see the rest of the manual swap, and come along for the journey if you want to see where I'm going to take this channel next. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.